And that was the Super Factory, my current ongoing band, and the name of that tune is Rheumatism. I think I played all the instruments on that except the bass. That was my friend Pete played the bass. By the way, the Super Factory is an open project. That was the idea of it. It's a band that anyone who wants to be in it can be in it. So if you're a musician or anything like that, and you think you could like to make something with me, I write all the songs in either the key of E or the key of D. So it makes it easy for people to fit in their own things there and that kind of thing. And generally work with beats that are either 93 BPM or 120 BPM. So that it's Steve who's picking my songs tonight. So it's I'm a bit embarrassed about playing my own music. So you can blame him if you don't like it. We're in the second hour of The Velocity of Now with your host Thomas Sheridan, www.thomassheridanarts.com. As you can tell, I have a nice mic. My voice is richer, even though unfortunately I have a bit of a cold tonight. And we're in the second hour here. At the moment, it's an open show tonight, and anyone can call in and have a discussion on any subject. And we have Kira here from Psychopaths in Charge, a very, very excellent website you should all check out. And we're talking about the issue of psychopaths in the female sense. You hear lots about male psychopaths, but you never hear about female psychopaths. If you want to know anything about, in a fictional sense, about female psychopaths, 3 things you could check out is 1, Kathy Ames in the Steinbeck novel East of Eden. That's the perfect portrayal of a female psychopath. Nicole Kidman in To Die For, the movie, and Joan Bennett in Scarlet Street, another movie, a Fritz Lang film from the 1940s. Now, Kira has been sharing with us some of her experiences with psychopathic females in the workplace, including gaslighting, creating little kind of gangs and minions, spreading lies and false rumor, generally the whole chaotic nature of it. But I don't know if Kira can interject this, but I'd like to talk about the relationships. Generally, female psychopaths, from the ones that I can only say I've only ever known one in a relationship sense when I was very young. Actually, when I was in my first band, before that even. And looking back on it years later, I realized that's what the situation was. But the thing is to look out for is the relationships move incredibly fast. And a female psychopath will tend to jump from one relation to another. And I'm talking about, like, she'll get divorced, right? And then immediately get plans to get married in no time. Have you experienced that, Kira?
Oh, absolutely.
Yourself, these women?
Absolutely. Yeah, and my old boss, in fact, married one of the higher-ups in the facility I work in order to get a higher position for herself. And once she got it, then she divorced him. And everybody was just totally blown away. They were like, I didn't even know there was any trouble. You know, it was just baffling. But she was done with him. So, you know, he was gone.
It was just an object.
And now...
And while she was dating him was probably incredible. Oh, he's the greatest man in the world. Oh, he's wonderful. Blah, 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 blah. The love bombing was probably flying. And then she just decided, goodbye.
Yeah.
Like,
and he was
like a child with a tie on Christmas Day.
Yeah, it was one of those real fast-moving, boom, all of a sudden they were getting married, and then all of a sudden they were getting divorced once she got that job she was looking for. And now, ironically, he has her old job. He's actually in a lower position than her now. So it's
business.
It's exactly what they do. Just business. And they'll either go with the type that's going to actually get them somewhere in their career goals, or get them a place to live, or get them more money, or buy them things, or, you know, just using. But if once they've gotten to higher positions, then they'll find somebody that they can just abuse, just completely abuse. So the one she has now is just this sort of older redneck guy that wants to marry her, is completely infatuated in love with her. And when he asked her to marry him, she literally screamed at him and told him to fuck off. So, but he still follows her around like a puppy dog. Yeah. She said, I told you I didn't want to get married. And she bragged about that. She said that, you know, that fool asked me to marry him.
Does this woman have it's hard to tell sometimes, but does she have a high testosterone level, would you say?
Yes, and it's manifested.
Would she be very muscular?
Well, she has a very small upper body, very muscular upper body, and a bigger sort of bottom, like sort of pear-shaped. But where I really could tell that she had a testosterone issue was that she's in her 30s and has horrible acne problems to the point where they scar her face. And so, that's
very
indication. Yeah. So that's what really. I noticed that after reading your book and the 5 things that you can tell, and I was like, oh wow, just wow. And it's really hard to find things about female psychopaths. It's almost impossible. I mean, I got sucked into the Jodi Arias trial just because there was a female psychopath that you could actually look at, and that reminded me of my boss, really. The way that she steers conversations into chaos, just her mannerisms and the total lack of remorse. And the way that, here's a woman that just completely slaughtered her boyfriend. She just, we're talking stabbed 30 times, almost decapitated and shot in the head, but yet she's able to get professionals to actually go on the witness stand and say that she's the victim, that he abused her. And so it's not enough. It's not enough for her to actually kill him, but she has to keep murdering his character after he's dead and torturing the family. That's how psychopaths are. They don't quit even after you're gone. And
it goes on forever. And they're always, like you said, they're always the victim. Like a female psychopath can spend her whole life running smear campaigns, attacking people, destroying reputations. And when somebody stands up with them, they're like, I'm just a little old lady. I need to be left alone.
Yep, exactly. And that's what makes women's shelters such dangerous places, because you get these professional victims that come in, and they've been diagnosed not as psychopaths, but of course as borderline personality, right? And so they come in and they can play. They play everybody who works there, and they make the shelter itself where women who have already, are almost, on their last leg of hope, and they play them too, and it's horrible. They love people who have chronic illnesses or autoimmune diseases because they know that stress makes it worse. So they like to raise a person with a chronic illness or disease. They like to raise that stress level and see that person suffer, and they can't be blamed for it because it's that person's disease. It's not the stress they're causing them with their traumatic personality or anything. No, they love that. They love to murder by suicide.
That's why so many of them are involved in elderly care. I find that's the most common, a very common profession for a female psychopath. Like, they don't ever seem to have real jobs unless it's a government job. They're like middle-aged babysitters and things like that. Very strange. They don't seem to have, or even have a history of regular jobs. It's just either marry some guy quickly or find a place to live, or be involved in kind of home care for the elderly, or a babysitter when they're middle-aged. But they never have a real career path. And the ones one of the reasons there's so many female psychopaths are drawn to that Nick just mentioned something about the Madonna song Borderline. I'm going to tell you something about that, Nick, in a few minutes. It'll blow your mind. But anyway, they target the elderly people because, well, you think about it. A, they can get stuff off them. They can rob them blind. They can get into their bank accounts. They might even get their home. There's all kinds that can change their will. But also, it's the image of the carer. And you'll have these older people who think, well, they'd be very wary. And this is the thing about, they'd be very wary of someone who was a man coming in as a carer. Unfortunately, because you could have the nicest guy in the world doing it. And also a minority, anyone from an ethnic group, an immigrant or something, they don't trust them. But they will trust one of their own kind of females. And this one as like their missing daughter. And these people will usually have their lives taken. Now, often directly, they will. I've heard cases of them poisoning old people and all these kinds of things. But one of the most insidious stories I ever heard was of someone wrote this when I first wrote Puzzling People. Someone wrote me a letter, and it was about that a female psychopath had moved in with her elderly grandfather or grandmother, I can't remember what it was, and would do things like say, I'm going out with my boyfriend, and then set her up with her dinner or whatever for the night, and she'll be back early in the morning. But the psychopath wouldn't go out to dinner. What they would do is they would slam the front door and then go down to the basement and start moving things and banging pipes and throwing things over, terrorizing the elderly person. Then at 2 o'clock in the morning, they go upstairs, open the door and slam it again and come in. And then the elderly person would say, oh my God, there was an intruder in the house. The psychopath would go looking all over the house, find nothing, and then would go up to the person and say, I think you're either losing your mind, or make some stories that I didn't want to tell you this, but the house is haunted by a ghost. Did you not know?
Yep.
Just to put them in a state of fear and dependency so the psychopath can manipulate them. Now, that thing, Nick, you just wrote that Nick, you just wrote that song Borderline by Madonna, right? Listen to the lyrics of that. Borderline, seems like I'm going to lose my mind, right? That song came now at the same time the American Psychiatric Association put borderline personality disorder in the DSM. And also, if you watch the video of that song that Madonna is in, she's behaving like a female psychopath. She's using and devaluing guys. And it's creepy, isn't it?
Yeah, and they definitely will use their sexuality to manipulate. Yeah. Definitely. And then when a guy reacts to that and says, favorably, then they're a victim. But they've used that to attract the guy. Yeah, it's like, what? That's crazy. That not only do they become elderly care workers, but they become babysitters as well. And that's where you find out this guy that was perfectly normal, there's nothing wrong with the marriage, and all of a sudden he's going with his babysitter, and it's because, she found out whatever his weaknesses were and worked him. And then, and it's someone you'd never suspect. You're like, that guy wasn't an asshole, he's not, So, but they find out what the triggers are and the weaknesses. The guy might be going through his like midlife crisis or something, and use that to gain access to his life and his parasite onto his consciousness and everything. Yeah, and my ex-boss was a babysitter.
Or the guy's a widow, or the guy's a widow,
right?
Or his wife is the guy is a widow, or a wife is having cancer.
Right, exactly, and she's next in line. She'll put herself next in line. Yep.
The thing is, all psychopaths, male and female, the thing that they do, there you go, and as the supportive one, I'll take care of your kids, that kind of thing. Right,
and the kids,
what they do is they put us out of kilter. This is how they function. You meet them and they put you out of kilter.
Yeah, it took a year to get back in balance for me. It did. It took a year for me to just sort of get back in balance. And I look back and I did a lot of things wrong, but I was under a lot of stress. This was a daily thing. And all I knew to use was the EEO system, which is a system that's designed to fail. Because if you file a complaint against a manager who has discriminated against you, you have to file it based on your protected class. So woman, Indian, whatever. You can't just be anybody who says this person did a horrible thing, prove they did a horrible thing, and then, move forward and get justice, because you have to prove that they did that horrible thing to you based on the fact that you're a woman, a black person, an Indian, or whatever your protected class is, disabled. You have to you don't not only have to prove that you were wronged, but that you were wronged because of who you are. And so that's where everybody gets held up. You can't prove that. It's not provable. And the agency will protect itself, because you have to sue the agency for having that monster in there, working for them. So, and the agency will protect itself. So it quite naturally is a system that's designed to fail. Yeah, the EEO laws don't protect anyone.
Because psychopaths set the system up.
Right, exactly. It's designed to fail because they wrote it up precisely. Yeah. So I think I'm going to, maybe just use my energy elsewhere instead of appealing and going through all that.
Well, that's the next thing. my mantra in all this is no contact ever again. And yourself, have nothing to do with them as little as possible. Did you find that worked for you, or did you try something else?
Oh yeah, I mean, while I was in it though, when I begged at every single level of the chain of command, please move me, please, until finally I got to the very top, and I was moved within 3 days, and I've been moved ever since. But yeah, and if we're about to get on the same elevator, I will take the stairs. I don't go near her now that I have that, and that is really the best thing to do. That is the absolute best way to do it, because any type of contact, even you thinking about them, they get into your head, So yeah, no contact ever again. And for the damage can last for years. It can last for decades.
Oh, yeah.
What they do. Myself, it took a lot for me to do this blog and to come out and to call in, because one of my biggest fears is loss of anonymity, because I was abused as a child by a psychopath, and he stalked me from childhood all the way into adulthood, even after my mom got rid of him. And so until he died a couple of years ago, I was looking over my shoulder every day, because he would find us. He would find us every 5 or 10 years. He would find us. It was the most horrible thing.
And you know what? The psychopath in the workplace recognized that about you.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
You'd already been softened up in childhood.
Exactly. Yes. And I tell people that are like, why do I keep they ask me, why do I keep going out with these types, these narcissists and psychopaths? I said, because you were trained from childhood to respond to their bullshit. So stop blaming yourself and just start looking at yourself and arming yourself and saying, look, this is the signal I'm sending out. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, what are the ghosts in my soul that this thing is able to zero in on and artificially fill for me? That's a very important one. On your blog, Psychopaths in Charge, you had an article where you took on Kevin Dutton on his website, defending me. And you mentioned something there that I have never spoken to you about. I appreciate it, and thank you for that, by the way. But you mentioned something on there that I've never spoken to you about, or really anyone about, but I do have my own beliefs about it. And you spoke about the spiritual aspects of the psychopathic experience. Would you mind, if you don't mind, if you don't have to, you don't want to, but would you mind elaborating on that?
Okay, well, before I elaborate on that, just a bit of humor. When I was talking to Kevin Dutton on his Facebook page, it was late at night, and I was there with my husband. I was like, oh, honey, he's answering me. And he's like, who's answering you? And I said, Kevin Dutton. And he was like, who the fuck's Kevin Dutton? So, that's the indigenous perspective on Kevin Dutton. They don't know who he is, and they don't care. But, and then, of course, he talked down to me. He thought I was just some, fat American housewife or something. He didn't know what she was talking about. But the other thing I noticed was that he was absolutely savaged after Psychopath Night. People were pissed. People who've never heard of you before. It wasn't just you. Because people instinctively were like, this is bullshit, And they were calling him on his Facebook page. So that's why I did that follow-up. Like, look, people are joining in. And it's not just us. It's not just, the Thomas Sheridan camp. It's a lot of people who know this instinctively, that this is bullshit. So, but anyway, the spiritual side of it, and it has to do with the consciousness parasite, which you really are the only person I've found that has even delved into this at all. And what it is they change your consciousness. They change the way you see yourself and the world, which is that's everything with your spirituality. The way you see yourself and the world, it's part of your spirituality, your spiritual identity. So they change your identity, they change your consciousness, they change your ability to deal with normal everyday things. And they look at what your triggers are, and then they put more. It's like they put a minefield of triggers around each trigger that you have. And that's the spiritual part of it. And you have to dismantle all of those little minefields when you go back and try to heal yourself. You have to dismantle all of those minefields, and you have to take on your fears head on. And that's why I did this.
It's a definition of black magic.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what it is. It's demonic sorcery. They're getting to your consciousness like a parasite, and they will ride inside your consciousness, and it's like a joyrider, teenage joyriders who hijack a really nice car, and then they just drive it around, trash it, and then eventually set fire to it in a piece of wasteland. That's what they do with your consciousness.
Absolutely, it's what they do, and I think a lot of people describe psychopaths as being soulless, not really having a soul. There's kind of a black hole there where a soul should be. And I think that's why they have to parasite off of people's consciousness, because they're in a constant state of contracted consciousness. They're in a constant state of fear. They live out of that reptilian brain. It's all about fear and getting what's mine. And so they have to parasite off of people who have it more of an expanded consciousness through whatever means.
But it's purposeful. It's purposeful.
Absolutely.
It's not like they have an illness. They're not. You see, this is one of the things people sometimes get confused with psychotics. No, psychotics are sick people who need help.
Right.
They're not sick. They know precisely what they're doing.
Yeah. And I correct people all the time, and they're like, "Oh, there she goes again." And I'm like, "No," because I've taken care of people who are delusional, and I'm a caregiver for a schizophrenic who's a very kind soul, a very, very kind soul. And, he would never hurt anybody unless he, was in a state of fear. So I teach them. I can only give them little tiny spoonfuls of this knowledge about psychopaths because he gets really scared. He's a paranoid, so tiny spoonfuls so he can arm himself because he gets targeted a lot because he's schizophrenic. So, yeah. And also children, you have to give them tiny spoonfuls too, because they will get scared.
Another thing too that Professor Kevin Dutton, when he was patronizing you, he said about it's really, they talk about this warrior gene bullshit. It's really about, epigenetics. And we still haven't done the epigenetic genome project. This is, saying that there's such thing as a psychopathic warrior gene is so dark. To me, it's like right out of SS or something like that, the master race gene. And that we need to isolate this gene for big business and politics, coupled with the fact that there is no proof of it. It's just complete and utter pap. There's no proof to it. And yet, when you say this to them, they say, we're working on it.
Yeah, we'll have it for the next 5 or 10 years. That's what Fallon says as well. Because I saw an interview with him where the interviewer was like, well, we don't actually have the proof right now. And she's like, well, we will in 5 or 10 years. So they're both pushing this without the proof, and they're counting on people not really fully understanding so that they can pull this off. And they can plant this idea out there that it does exist before there's any proof. And as we know, they're not going to find the proof because they're not looking in the right place. They're not looking at consciousness.
Or if you want to get very spooky about this, putting on my tinfoil hat, we know that epigenetics is the triggering of gene expressions mainly through thoughts. Are they trying to implant an idea to get people to switch on genetic sequences that may lead to more aggressive behavior? I think these guys are doing something very, very dangerous. Whether they know it or not, this is not. They shouldn't be talking about things that are not proven yet. They're trying to create a sort of an epigenetic master race of future politicians and Gordon Geckos, and it's bullshit. It's bullshit, but it's dangerous, dangerous bullshit. Listen, Kira, can you stick around for the last half hour? Are you busy?
Sure. Yeah, I will.
You can stick. Okay, we're going to do one more song, the last song of the night now, and again, Steve has picked another Children's Zoo song. This is from 1988, I think this was, and this is, the name of the song was, I think what was it called? I can't remember. It's from a video I made called Stained Glass Colors, but this is the Children's Zoo. And that was the Children's Zoo, my old band in New York, where the name of that song was actually the Stick Figures. That was Robert Conroy on vocals and Chris Bolam on the bass and me on the guitar. That song is kind of sad sounding because it was written about us watching people coming in and out of the AIDS treatment clinic in New York, and they I think Robert remarked that they looked like banshees. Their faces were white and their hair was often white, and it was just watching all these young guys coming in and out, getting their whatever drug cocktails they were giving them back then when AIDS was a big epidemic in New York, and that's really what that song is about. It was almost like the funeral march of a generation of people in New York, and I was always very pleased with the guitar sound on that. That I used the Memory Man analog delay and a Roland chorus pedal, and I still use to this day the same setup, except I use a digital version of an analog delay. I know that sounds a bit weird, but it gets that old warm transistor sound. I've never changed my guitar sound actually ever since I've been about 17. I'm very influenced by John McGeek from Susie and the Banshees and Wayne Hussey from The Sister Mercy, as well as the echo was very much Dave Gilmour from Pink Floyd. They're probably my three most influential guitar players. So anyway, that was the Children's Zoo and the Stick Figures. We're in the final stretch here of the Velocity of Now on a Type 1 radio network. We have an open mic tonight. I've got Steve here, but he's doing a production and picking Children's Zoo songs. Nick is a bit quiet, but he's giving some stuff on the chat. And I've got Kira as well. Before we finish up on the last half an hour, I want to say that I think it's May 17th, the weekend of May 17th in England, in Daventry, which I believe is in Northampton. It's near Birmingham area, in between Birmingham and Northampton. I'm doing my only speaking event, and it's going to be a big special one, in England this summer at the AV5 in... It's a festival organised by Ian O'Crane called Humanity versus Insanity, and myself will be there as well as Ian, Patrick Henningsen and a few others, and still some guests to be confirmed. But it's going to be a special weekend because you can hang out with the speakers, and we'll be having dinner together. So if you come along to it, you can hang out with us, have dinner with us. And who knows, hopefully we'll get a bunch of musical instruments there, and we can have a jam at the end of the night and that kind of thing. So it's going to be humanity versus insanity, but like everything I do, it's not about negativity. It's about celebrating the magic and the beauty of human existence through creativity and joy and good laughs and good humor, because ultimately that's what will help us take down the psychopaths in charge. In fact, it's already working. So you can check for details or tickets from IanOrCrane.com. That's EIAN or CRANE.com, and you can get that there. So we're back in the final stretch here. I have Kira. We were originally talking about female psychopaths, but now it's just generally drifted onto other ideas about psychopaths and epigenetics and things like that. Kira runs the blog Psychopaths in Charge. It's one of the best blogs out there. I consider her one of the people I've handed the baton to, if you will. I want to go concentrate on other things, and I think I've worked for now until new science come out. I've done all I can do about the psychopath issue. So it's people like Kira and other people like that who are doing it for the right reasons, not trying to get back at their ex-husband or looking for pity or sympathy, but doing it because they genuinely care about the future of the human race and want to leave it a better place for the rest of us. Have, graciously and bravely, this is not easy stuff to do, folks, taken that baton and brought it forward. Now, Kira, you were saying earlier on, this is something that we have to reiterate to the listeners, that you were saying that because you were abused by a psychopath as a child, it softened you up to the point where the older ones are able to see those missing or those damaged ghosts in your soul. And this is
right.
I've had psychopaths tell me this to my face, that they can walk down the street in any city in the world and they can see who's a damaged person. They just have this uncanny ability to do this. This is what makes them very, very dangerous. Now, I'll interject later on, but I want to first of all, if you were to say to someone, how do you stop being a victim of a psychopath in the workplace or the relationship, what would you advise?
I would advise to read every single book you can find about psychopathology and make yourself an expert so that you can begin to see their tells and become just as much of an expert as they are in reading us. You need to become an expert in reading them. They've been studying us for centuries. We're just getting started. So the only way to become effective in defending yourself is to become an expert. Read everything you can find. Absolutely.
Another one I would suggest is modifying your own behavior in the workplace, especially.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've worked in corporate America and corporate Ireland and corporate England and a few other countries around Europe. One of the things that struck me about America is that Americans are very, very open about their private lives and their personal lives. For instance, if you work in an American office, you see all kinds of paraphernalia all around the desk of what their hobbies are, photographs of their kids, all their favorite this, that, and the other. And I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but it's that open nature of American people. Where if you go to an Irish or a British office building, other than maybe a screensaver of their favorite football team or something like that, people don't generally put their whole lives on their desk. You have to remember, folks, when a psychopath, to them, that's the ultimate. That's you like giving them the Gestapo a dossier on you. They know every way to manipulate you because they can read that stuff like a book. Yeah,
I'll give you a good example. I'm probably one of the lowest level employees at the facility that I work at. And what has continually happened to me is that I'll get my foot in the door someplace, and then the bosses will realize I've been basically a secretary my whole adult life. That's all I can seem to get. And what happens time and time again is that the bosses realize that I'm smarter than them, and then they suddenly become scared of me and do whatever they can to get rid of me. And so she read that like a book, that I had that, like, this is my final chance to actually have a real career, you know. She read me like a book. And so she made it her personal mission to make sure that I would never have a career there. And so far she's succeeded. I'll never be anything more than a secretary for FEMA, ever. You know, and part of my mission is that this mind, this writer, this creative person is being utterly and completely wasted. They're incapable of using what they have. The agency,
but
absolutely incapable.
But then you have to take that and do as you're doing and use it as to on your mission to get after the psychopaths. That's why I always say to people, instead of being angry and resentful and becoming an alcoholic or anything like that, use the experience and turn yourself into a weapon of knowledge.
Yeah, and that's the message I got from your work, and I said, okay, I'm going to do it. And it was scary, and it's still scary for me. Like, I can't even listen to the last radio show from last week. I still haven't been able to do it. Yeah.
No, but that's fine. Don't worry about it. You're very eloquent, and the feedback from your last appearance on the show was phenomenal. And I'm sure this one will be too as well. So you've already made a huge difference in the small. You really have, because it's so good to hear someone with another voice saying it in much the same way I'm saying it with a different accent. But it's important, especially as you're a woman and you do work in corporate America. Now, another thing I would say to people is, along with like putting your life, a lot of people who are on spiritual quests, people who are on spiritual paths, these are psychopaths love them because they know that person is looking for a spiritual thing, and they'll totally target those people, even if it's not a spiritual thing. They'll come after them in some other way because they know that this person has a longing to want a better world and a better life and a better standard. And people that go on spiritual quests, they waste an awful lot of time looking at the wrong things. It's like that old song, Looking for Love in All the Wrong Places. They're looking for spirituality in all the wrong places. They haven't looked at themselves, is the main problem. And they're looking for gurus and stuff. Be very careful about bringing that into the workplace because they will use that with you as well. Another thing not to bring into the workplace, see, this is what the psychopaths will do. They will try to know what you did on the weekend, what your hobbies are. Small talk is you don't. It's like I've said this to people. You do not go to work to have a social life. You go to work. This is what corporations have a human resource department to try to encourage you that you're working with your friends. If the people you work with are here friendly and you get on great with them, that's wonderful. But it's very rare. It's not a guarantee. When you go into the workplace, you go in there to work, to make money, to support your family, and then you get the fuck out and go home. That's your job. Right. You're not going there to indulge in some kind of mystical experience of friendship. This is why the psychopath will grill you on what you did on the weekend. Small talk is the best talk in an office situation. Because if you say things like, oh, my mother has cancer, blah, 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 I'm getting a divorce, let me tell you, they will start building a dossier on you. And before you know it, they'll know you better than you know yourself.
Exactly, yeah. One of the things that she found out about me was that I'm a powwow singer. So I sing at powwows. And when I first got hired at FEMA, my drum was doing their second year, my family drum was doing their second year for the Department of Labor. They have a Native American celebration, like, of course, every November. And so I can say I'm a professional singer because I get paid for singing at powwows. But I wanted to do something for free for our facility because they don't have anything for every month they're supposed to be celebrating something else, whatever month it is, whoever they're honoring that month. And we don't do anything. And so I said to her, I said, we can do, my drum could come in here, we could do something get some dancers, do something for Native American month. And she's like, well, if we let you guys do that, then everybody will want a month. And I was like, well, that's the idea, right? Like, cool. But no. So again, she made it her personal mission to spread around that I was just some weird chick who wanted to get her Indian drum in, and, so people I didn't even know that I was, like, interjecting race into every conversation. That's what it turned out to be.
Classic gaslighting.
Yeah. Right. It was more like I was trying to share the beauty of Native culture with my, coworkers. But, hey, that was, so they do. They grill you about everything you're into, and they use it against you. They use your consciousness parasites, use your brain against you. They use your idealism. Yeah, the idealist is the perfect victim for a workplace psychopath because idealists, they want to make the workplace a better place. So they're always, looking at how can we improve things, and that's their first target. People who really honestly want to improve things. And I don't know if I was really clear about this the last time, but the real conspiracy with FEMA is that the people who are doing the compassionate work, working with disaster survivors every day, are the ones who are gaslighted and treated like garbage on a daily basis. That's the real conspiracy. Ever since the X-Files movie came out, people want to make FEMA into something it's not. It's simply an agency that is there to help people when they've been in a big, huge disaster. That's it. And one of the things that worries about me is people are so scared of FEMA and prison camps and all this baloney that's out there is that when people come to their door to help them, they're going to be scared of them. And, those are the last people you really need to be scared of because, they're not going to victimize people because they lose their job, So,
well, you had people like Alex Jones portraying FEMA as like the Gestapo or something.
Yeah,
knock
and that
on the
all
door
comes from X-Files. You can trace that all back to X-Files, saying that, it was a big, the X-Files movie.
Didn't Chris Carter say that he was getting scripts handed to him by the CIA?
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Oh, yeah, there was an interview with one of the guys that was in the TV show The Lone Gunman, which was the spin-off show, and the guy was saying that Chris Carter was a magnet for, and he admitted this himself, for CIA guys who would be hovering around the margins of him, saying, I have a great idea for a story, I have a great idea for a script. Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's totally believable because once that came out, then you had the Department of Homeland Security subsuming FEMA underneath its umbrella. So I think that was all a big, huge plan from the very beginning, and they introduced that conspiracy stuff into mainstream, like, the Lords of Perception. They did it. And so now FEMA is part of Homeland Security, which is a pretty, gigantic evil entity that we really should be afraid of because they can do things that they were talking about in the movie, but FEMA can't. If you look at the law that governs FEMA, there's no possibility that FEMA could do any of the things that Alex Jones says that FEMA's doing. It's just not possible.
Well, I often think that he's part of the, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it seems to me that his fear-mongering serves a far more political purpose than we're made to believe. It just seems to me that it's all based on this idea of demonizing anyone who works for a government agency at any level, to the point where, you know, if an ambulance comes to your door, you're supposed to like lock yourself in with guns. I mean, this also destroys the idea of like that government works for us. That, you know, they work for us. But by creating a situation where they're all fascists, you're destroying that too, because you're sort of acquiescing to your subservience to government if you're afraid of them coming to the door.
Yeah, it serves their purposes. It serves the psychopaths in charge purposes. Absolutely, the conspiracy nutters out there. Well, there's a lot of conspiracy people that I actually agree with a lot of stuff, but the more hardcore elements of them, the more hardcore elements of ones who believe everything. This is what they're feeding. This is what see. Most of the people I meet that we'd call conspiracy orientated are actually pretty rational, cool people. But yet there are among them, just like anything else. Are among them just like anything else. There are absolute whack jobs as well, who would be, no matter what they'd be involved in. If they were working for the government, they'd be fanatics. They're just fanatics by nature. And unfortunately, they're the ones who get pushed to the fore. I just want to interrupt you there for a second. What's this? Can you come on, Nick? What's this you're talking about, 1013? What does that mean? Can you hear me, Nick? Or Steve?
1013 is the date when all the when the Templars sort of got chucked out of power. France, and it's when the bank collapsed, and it's an esoteric date like 9/11.
But you said somebody's company is called 1013?
Chris Carter, who made the X-Files.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You probably heard those stories too about how he's like stitched up with the CIA.
Oh yeah. Well, Freeman Flyer, good friend, he brings this up a lot. And it's a date that he always watches because something will always happen on it, because it's a very esoteric date.
Yeah, it's Friday the 13th. Yeah. Interesting.
Especially when it happens on a Friday, apparently. You know, there's nothing bad luck about it. It's like you were saying about Magic Earl. It's just one of these days that a sigil is released or energized.
Yeah, an idea was planted in the minds of people.
Yeah, it's a very Masonic time of year. It's the 13th of October, isn't it?
Yeah, so there you go, folks. Chris Carter. So that's interesting. That I've never heard that once. You wonder what else. Well, I'll tell you what else the X-Files has. I know we're going off topic here, but it's not really, because psychopaths are in the media as well. But what really, another one that I remember from the X-Files as well, is that years and years before bovine encephalitis, mad cow disease, was ever in the mainstream anywhere, they had an episode of the X-Files where you had this meat plant in Pennsylvania, I think it was, where cows were being fed other cows, chickens being fed chickens, and suddenly people were developing this kind of mental disease. And that was years and years before the bovine encephalitis thing came out in the UK.
Yeah, scary stuff.
It's like it's like the thing that the occult sorcerer has to warn you of what they're like. It's like when people say in Nazi Germany, we didn't know Hitler was going to do this. It was on every fucking page of Mein Kampf.
Right.
He told you right up. He was honest.
And the movies, like you look at like with transhumanism and the movies, you look at how movies from the 90s were introducing us to the whole idea of transhumanism, like that robot movie with Will Smith, with all the different robots, and he has a robot arm, but he doesn't trust the robots, so he ends up being friends with one of them. In the end, like that all had, that one movie had a lot of introduction into transhumanism, and you can only see it now that you look back at movies like that. They introduce everything.
Look at the Terminator movies, right? No matter how far they go back in time with Sarah Connor as a kid, or what happens, or he becomes a good robot, the ultimate message of that story is the robots won.
Right.
Doesn't matter what happens in this reality. At the end of the day, the guy had to come back from the future because the robots won. So they put that idea into your head already. That's the message of the Terminator films. The robots won. Just like the message of Avatar is, NATO won.
Right.
Well, like you were saying earlier, Thomas, about them using magic, they have to let you know they're doing it, and you have to kind of agree to it in some kind of way. So it's the predictive programming's put in through movies, through pop culture, for you to agree with it.
Right.
And then it comes to life.
Forever. Yeah, they've been doing that forever.
Can I make a comment here, Thomas? Hi, it's Fi.
Hi, Fi.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi there. I just wanted to say, you were saying about films and how the films of the past there were sort of bringing in the transhumanism kind of thing, which is obviously carried on. But there's an interesting film out now with Leonardo DiCaprio, the one about the Wall Street Wolf. And I kind of feel like these sort of films now that are coming out now are kind of putting the guilt trip on people about wanting something, about wanting to kind of achieve something, because it kind of shows these people for the the greed, hungry people that they were. And they kind of went to the extreme, but it's almost as if we're being kind of led down this path now that we're not meant to have expectations of wanting anything, and we should all.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because I was thinking about something today.
And that the individual is bad, and we should all just be a homogenous group.
Or making any kind of money is shameful.
Yeah.
Especially if you're a poor person. Like I remember when I used to visit my cousins in England and my aunts, it was always one of the cultural things that were very different from us in Ireland, was that they saw somehow that people working and making lots of money was somehow shameful.
Yeah,
and
that's huge in Indian country too.
We didn't have that in Ireland because it's like we'd probably more like Americans that way, that like you get as much money as you can, work as hard as you can, and get yourself out of shit. I've now come to the conclusion that was like a psyop played on people in England. That was like working class people, know your place. Middle class people, know your place. If you make lots of money, you're a sellout. If you're a singer and you sell lots of records, and even like things like the NME, if you had a hit single, you were automatically declared a sellout. And it was like, wasn't that the idea we started a band in the first place, to get the music to as many people as possible? And I often found that was a psyop. And that rule in England never applied to the royal family. That's who invented it, the rich. It was the way they would never have to share their wealth.
Yeah, there's a really big attitude in America about Native Americans. Native Americans that get rich are, considered sellouts. And there's this idea like, well, how dare they have casinos and set up trust funds for their babies, and the idea behind that is that natives don't have the right to make money, and that's huge in America. That is huge. It's underneath everything, and it's in Canada as well. Like the whole idea that Canadians are paying for.
First you get the money, and then you get the power. They don't want them to have the power. They only want a certain type of person having the money and having the power. And even the way people in England who make, I'm not going to just in England, it happens in Ireland and other countries too, but like, do you ever notice like the way the Beckhams are portrayed? They don't know how to spend their money properly. They're tacky. It's their own business how they spend their money. It's nobody's business.
Right. Just like if you give a homeless person money, they'll just use it for alcohol. None of my business. I gave it to them.
Yeah,
none of my business how they use it. It's a gift.
Yep.
Forget it. Yeah.
Well, that's the charities that played that scam beautifully.
They sure do.
Give it to a corporate charity for some guy who has a downtown office, makes a six-figure salary, a multiple six-figure salary, has the latest car every year, and he gets all kinds of awards from the president or the queen, for his charity work. You're supposed to give it to them.
Right.
And if you want to relinquish your sort of responsibility to humanity so much that you think that just by passing around coins is going to help somebody, then that's not really going to do the trick. We have to have a humanity that is
that is actually civilized.
that is actually humane to one another.
Well, what I do
these elite systems all the time. And,
what I find is the best for me is I ask a homeless person, "Do you want something?" Because a lot of them won't get served in shops because they're in rags and stuff like that, or they look like junkies.
Right.
And I swear to God, 9 times out of 10, the guy will say, "Can you get me a cup of coffee and a sandwich?"
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And I mean,
if he wants a bottle of whiskey, I'll get it for him too.
Yeah. Hey, whatever kills the pain.
But you might have a toothache that night. It might be the way he's dealing with it, you know.
Right. Yeah, I know somebody who was in horrible pain and used alcohol, as a means to. I mean, there was no moment in time where she wasn't in severe pain, and if she wanted alcohol, I got it for her. I don't care. She was hurting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's none of our business how people.
That's the whole. No, it's none of our business, and if that's their means of survival, that's their means of survival. It's not ours to judge, really. But that guilt trip is all about that. And those big charities, so many of them are run by the Catholic Church. They're like things like the Salvation Army and stuff. And if you look into them, they're like really homophobic and all this kinds of things too.
Oh, terrible! Yeah. And women are just a means for babies. Women don't have value unless they've given birth. So yeah. We don't have a right to prevent that from happening because we can't.
Well, I don't know about it. I don't know about everyone else, but I think this is a great show tonight. I'm really delighted with everyone's input. I think.
Yay,
thank you, Kira. So,
thank you.
I feel good about tonight. There's a good energy, and I think we've got some information out there that people can actually use. This is important. It's not just sitting there ragging on the others, and it's good to have this this meeting of the minds. Because these kind of conversations don't happen in mainstream media, and they happen less and less in real life anymore. And that's why I think it was Nick who said our job is to replace the mainstream media, and that's what this is all about. So I'd like to thank you, Kira, very much again for coming on, and with your wisdom and very nice accent, and bye, and for your interjection, it was very important. Nick, for his 10-13, and Steve for doing a fantastic job with the songs, and even though I'm a little embarrassed playing my own stuff on the air, it really was his idea. But he didn't tell me he was going to play the sitar piece at the beginning. So,
I want to live apologise for that on the air, but I thought it was a good laugh. It's quite a good little piece. And I enjoyed the music if nobody else did, so...
I enjoyed it too.
I did too.
I just wasn't expecting it.
It was wonderful.
Oh, thank you very much. So this is it. Velocity of Now, Type 1 Radio. Fi is throwing a knife at Steve. Take care. Enjoy your life, and don't let the bastards get you down. And I'll see you this time all next week on the Velocity of Now. Thank you very much.